No matter what I say in this video, somebody's going to disagree with me.
What do you mean?
And honestly, that's kind of the point. If you've had the opportunity to own one of these, do you leave it exactly how it came from the factory? Or do you turn it into something completely different? Welcome back to Just Driven. So behind me are three versions of the same car, the Toyota Mark IV Supra. They all started from the same place with the same underlying platform engineering, but ended up in completely different directions. And honestly, what makes this interesting isn't even just the cars, it's what the people decided to do with them. Some guys won't touch them at all. Others can't wait to start modifying them. Then you've got the group of guys chasing something that's a little harder to explain, something tied to a memory more than logic. It's not just about performance anymore, and it's not strictly about originality either. People are coming at these cars from a completely different angle, and that's what makes this actually worth talking about. Let's start with the stock car. This is our 1994 Toyota Supra. Turbo, Targa, automatic. It is completely untouched. And I'll tell you right away, this one feels different before you even leave the parking lot. There's something about driving a car completely stock, exactly the way it left the factory. The shifts are a little softer, power delivery comes in smooth, not aggressive. Even the small quirks, the things people use to complain about, those are part of the character now. Back when these cars were just used cars, nobody treated them like collectibles. They were platforms, starting points. You bought one with the intention of changing it. Turbo upgrades, transmission swaps, engine builds, that was the norm. Nobody was thinking about preservation. But over time, every one of those decisions slowly reduced how many original cars were left. And now we're at the point where finding one that hasn't been taken apart or reworked, that's getting harder. And there's something about that which hits differently. You're not just driving a Supra at that point, you're experiencing what it felt like when these were new. And for a lot of people today, that connection matters more than anything you could actually do to it. Now, completely different story over here. Because a lot of people looking at a stock Supra kind of feels like there's something unfinished. And that way of thinking didn't come out of nowhere. It comes from what these cars are capable of doing. Under the hood is the iconic 2JZ.
2JZ engine, no shit.
And that engine built its reputation in a very specific way. It wasn't about what it did from the factory, it was about what it could handle once you started pushing it. You didn't need to reinvent the whole car to wake it up. A properly set up turbo system, the right supporting mods, good tuning, and suddenly you're in a completely different league. That's what this car represents. This one started life as a relatively stock, naturally aspirated NA, 1997 Supra Anniversary Edition hardtop. What stood out right away was the condition. It was super clean, under 50,000 residual miles, no accidents, no repaint, nothing hidden under the surface. It still had the naturally aspirated 2JZ. It didn't come with the turbo motor refinements, and it had the factory 5-speed in it. But it was a fixed roof, no Targa top, which a lot of guys actually prefer when they're thinking about building one. It wasn't rare in the traditional sense, but it was untouched. That's the key. It hadn't been taken apart, hadn't been pushed, hadn't been turned into someone else's version of the car. Aside from a set of aftermarket wheels, it was basically a blank canvas. And that's exactly the kind of car guys like us look for when we're planning to do a build, because you're not undoing someone else's decisions, you're starting fresh, which made it an easy call. No hesitation, no second guessing. We knew exactly where it was going. Turbo setup, 6-speed swap, the Getrick B160, everything built with intention. And once you drive it, the difference is immediate. The car responds quicker, power comes in harder and keeps pulling. It feels tighter, more focused, like it finally woke up. And at that point, you're not preserving anything. You're creating something that didn't exist before. And for a lot of builders, that's the whole appeal. You're not just owning the car, you're shaping what it becomes. You're personalizing it. And then there's this one.
What's the retail on one of those?
This doesn't really sit in the same category as the other two, because once you go down this path, you're not chasing performance numbers, and you're not preserving originality either. This lives somewhere else entirely. It's tied to the Fast and Furious. It's tied to Brian O'Connor. And more than anything, it's tied to a moment that a lot of people still remember pretty clearly. I mean, we're coming up on 25 years, but we still remember it. The first time that car showed up on screen, something clicked. It wasn't about horsepower, it wasn't about rarity, it was about the way it looked, the way it moved, the attitude behind it. For a lot of people, that was the first time a car felt personal. And now, years later, those same people are in a position to build one. But here's where it gets misunderstood. Doing it properly takes a lot more than people think. You can't just throw graphics on it, do a quick paint job, and expect it to land. The interior details, the little visual cues, it all has to come together. If something's off, even slightly, it stands out immediately. So when someone actually commits to building at a high level, it's not just a copy, it's a recreation of a moment. And by the time you get there, you're not talking about a small investment anymore. You're deep into hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, which sounds excessive until you understand what they're really after. It's not numbers, it's a feeling that they've held on to for so many years. This is where it all comes together. At some point, anyone looking at one of these cars runs into the same situation. You find a clean example, low mileage, well kept, nothing obviously wrong with it. Now you've got a choice to make. Some people would leave it exactly as it sits, knowing originality is getting harder and harder to find. Others would already be planning a build before the car even makes it home. In fact, in some cases, the build is already planned out in their head before they even acquire the car. And then there are the ones who take it in a completely different direction and turn it into something recognizable from a completely different context. Every direction gives you something else and takes something away at the same time. That's why this conversation never really ends. Everyone's coming at it from different perspectives. And after being around these cars for as long as we have, you start to see the value in each one of these different reasons. The stock car keeps you connected to where everything started. The build car shows you what the platform is capable of when you push it. And the movie route, that's the car that reminds you why people got into these cars in the first place. At the end of the day, cars aren't just about specs. They're about connection. They're about the experiences tied to them. And whatever direction lines up with that for you, that's the right choice. Before we wrap this up, I do want to touch on something really quick. We've actually spent a lot of time on these cars already, just not in one place like this. Our Toyota Supra Mark IV, the Fast and Furious build, we've gone deep on that car. Full build videos, long form content. One of those videos is getting close to 7 million views now. So if you want to actually see how that car came together from the start to finish, we'll link those videos below so you can go back and watch the entire process. Same thing with our hardtop build. We documented that one step by step as well. So rather than repeat everything here, we'll point you in the right direction so you could actually see that one in detail as well. So now the black turbo car. That one's a little different. We've touched on it here and there, but we've never fully committed to what's going to be coming of it. Alex actually picked that car up off of Bring a Trailer when it popped up with no reserve. We haven't really decided what we're going to do with it. We've talked about possibly converting it to a manual transmission, maybe turning it into another replica, since we've had so many people reach out to us asking us to build accurate versions of what we did to this car. To be honest, tough call. It's an automatic, which already makes it a little different today. And the fact that it's still a true turbo that hasn't been taken apart, modified, and beat up and crashed, there's something about that makes you pause. We fired it up the other day, moving it around the shop. It was funny how quiet it was. You barely hear it running. It's smooth, subtle, honestly, closer to something like a Camry in how calm it feels at idle. And sitting next to these other two, it almost felt like it doesn't belong. So for now, we're leaving it alone. No rush, no pressure. It's perfectly fine sitting here exactly as it is, surrounded by cars that went in completely different directions. As far as the Fast and Furious car goes, this one has taken on a life of its own. Universal Studios has used that car quite a bit. It's become one of their go-to pieces when they need something accurate. They actually had us provide that car to the company Kyosho so they could scan it and build die-cast versions of it. That's how particular they are about the details. And that only happened because the level of accuracy they recognized in this build, which is a huge honor for us. We've had this car involved in multiple collaborations with Universal Studios already, and there's more coming this year. It's tied into the grand opening of the Hollywood Drift ride at Universal Studios, along with a few other contracted events. So it's not just something that sits in this shop. It actually is constantly on the schedule. It's actively out there being used. Even Vin Diesel has spent time in this car. And looking ahead, we haven't seen a script yet for the finale. and I don't even know if one's finished, but there's rumors floating around that the car may make an appearance in the finale. We'll see what happens there. That just shows how far something like this can go when it's done at a high level. And if you're new to our channel, that's part of what we do here. It's not just Fast and Furious builds. We've got a collection of cars that we rent out to studio production events, all kinds of different things. A lot of what you see here ends up on camera somewhere else. So if that's the kind of stuff you're into, you may want to stick around. Now, with all that being said, I'm still curious where you guys stand on this issue of these Supras. How many of you actually own one of these? And if you do, what direction did you go? Did you leave it alone? Did you build it into something faster? Or did you go after something that's tied to a moment that kind of stuck with you? And if you're somewhere in between. And if you're the type that modifies these things but saves every original part just in case you ever want to bring it back. I know a lot of you out there do exactly that. So drop it in the comments. I want to see where everyone stands on this. Because the more time you spend around these cars, the more you realize there isn't a right or wrong answer. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.